Hey there again. You're listening to Chronically Online on WERW. Today, we have a very special segment. For the long time I've been doing the show, I've been trying to do interviews, and right now we have our first interview. I am very pleased to have this guest with me. I guess I'll introduce them as music critic, internet personality, musician, Punk Revolution Now. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Hey, I think that was a pretty solid introduction. I think that's probably the correct
Is that the right order?
the right adjectives. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. So, your name's pronounced Kaio, right?
Yeah, Kaio. Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
I just don't want to get the pronunciation right. So, here, tell the people a little bit about yourself
Okay.
first.
Yeah, sure. Um so so Punk Revolution Now is my internet username across various platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Um Before Punk Revolution Now as an internet phenomenon really got started, I was a guitarist in the band Died. Go listen to our music. And we started kind of gaining a little bit of a following there as a band, playing like experimental punk and post-hardcore. From there, I started my YouTube channel, Punk Revolution Now, where I started just kind of like doing like funny bits, music-related bits, really just for like my close friends, but it started getting traction, doing this Punk Revolution Now stuff, and I started doing music reviews, album reviews, started kind of getting picked up a little bit more within the internet indie music community as a music critic. And now, I've actually, most recently as Punk Revolution Now, have expanded a lot on Instagram. So Instagram is actually where I've got the largest following now. I've got about 30,000 followers on Instagram doing various memes and bits and music jokes and etc. And I've got my band Fireman also releasing music. So that's kind of the thingamajig in a nutshell.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that Punk Revolution Now represents a very interesting cross of kind of internet culture and music at the same time, which has been the theme of the radio show. So I'm very happy to have this interview go down. I actually discovered the band Died and your content like independently of each other. Like I found the band Died like in 2019 or so, and I like listened. I'm like, whoa, a band that sounds like Slint. That's crazy. Because I was like 16, I hadn't
Yep.
expanded too far out.
Yeah, no, that
Um,
happens a lot. Like every once in a while, I'll post on Instagram like referencing my time as a musician in Died, and people will be like, "Wait, WTF? I had no clue you were in Died." So it's still, it is kind of like a little weird. I think that's the right way. It's like, so I've definitely like my origin story of like kind of where I really have like grown out of is definitely like this very niche internet music community. Like
yeah,
Slint, obviously, my band Died was super inspired and influenced by, and like obviously that's like a band that like a very like specific online music nerd community loves, and I obviously was like very much deeply a part of that, and my
yeah,
content reflects that. Um, but definitely now that I've gotten a bit bigger, I've got my podcast with my girlfriend, Sophie, who's Jonah Varka on Instagram, and we've been doing a little bit more. Well, we have all sorts of different guests on who are, like we have some music guests on, like we've had Wise Blood and Dorian Electra on, but then we'll have, like drag queens and like comedians on and stuff like that. So just kind of like it definitely feels like there's like a weird blend of me coming from this niche indie music community
sometimes
and then blending.
polygramers.
Yeah, exactly. All sorts of
I
different.
think I've listened to the MLE.
Oh yeah,
What's her last name?
Montreal. She changes her last name all the time. She's she's a very I love her. I mean, she's got some spicy political takes, exactly. So, some politics, whatever, I don't know, Marxist kind of leftists, also all over the place, sort of. So yeah, it's been really fun time.
Yeah. Yeah, when as I thought that like Died had like a very specific way that like the posts were done. And then like later
Mm-hmm.
on, like I heard like an interview of like, oh yeah, I was in a band Died and I had a idea for the phrase Punk Revolution Now. I'm like, oh, that's where they're from. Like, cause
Yeah.
when I follow Punk Revolution Now, I discovered it from Slint memes, just like kind of like saying the name as like as a I don't know, as like a music critic place.
Yeah. Oh,
And then I
yeah.
followed it. I was like, this guy looks really familiar. I don't know where I'm
Yeah.
supposed to know him from. And then I put the two and two together.
Oh yeah, no, Slint memes. That he's been a huge supporter of Punk Revolution now. His name's Justin, and like Slint memes is actually how I met my girlfriend Sophie.
Hmm.
Slint memes. Justin like was sending Punk Revolution Now stuff to Jonah Varka, and Jonah Varka, for those who don't know, is a meme account with like 180,000 followers, a big account. So Jonah Varka, my girlfriend Sophie, really liked the Punk Revolution Now stuff. She DM'd me, then we met up in Brooklyn, and then we started dating. So Slint Memes not only has been a huge advocate for Punk Revolution Now stuff, but Slint Memes, he's like changed the world by bringing Sophie and I together.
That's cool as hell.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so like I guess the first question I have, it's like a little bit like technical ish. It's more of like I want to know what your thoughts on this are. So I kind of see your content, your presence as like kind of representing this like growing like Gen Z era of creators. And it's like kind of distinct by people who are like openly either kind of like their content comes from like a left wing coding or it's like just like openly uh like for a left wing audience. Whereas like in the 2010s, like stuff of like the millennial era was like I don't know, more like either like content that was like kind of normal-ish, but like right wing coded, like I don't know, that's like Sam Hyde stuff, or like the audience was like still has like kind of appealed to like edginess and whatnot. Like that was like the I don't know, like Filthy Frank type stuff. So I don't know if you see like the same like kind of Gen Z new era wave, but that's how I kind of view your niche.
Well, I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, I definitely, when I was 16 on the internet, that was definitely correct. Like the alt right, like a lot of the internet humor, which was very much funny, memes that like even Anthony Fantano was doing like his, meme reviews and just engaging very directly with like these explicitly alt right memes. That was definitely the internet culture of that era. So, I never really thought about that's actually an interesting observation because I've never thought about it, but I hope that's correct, where it's like I'm a little bit of like the mirror side of it, like where I'm engaging with memes and with just like a little bit more of a left wing tone.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that because I'm left wing and I would rather that be like the vibe of internet humor rather than like alt right bashing feminism. Um, yeah, I mean,
Or like the common thing was like, well, we make fun of everyone.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. We make fun. Yeah, it's like South Park. But yeah, I think yeah, it's very interesting to me how me kind of like doing these like posts. I don't really think too hard about like what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm just trying to like
I mean, I
have.
see some of it as like a response to being in like a sludge content era, where it's just like random ass stuff. Like if you know the page like Justin Russo,
Oh yeah.
Goop,
Oh, I love
whatever,
them. Yeah, I've
it's
met them
just
in
like
real
that,
life. Yeah,
like just kind of like random. Like why does this exist? Type content.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Very much. And I definitely, see myself, the content I'm putting out there. I see myself as very like directly influenced and inspired by other comedians that like I grew up watching. Like obviously like Tim and Eric, awesome show, and like Tim Heidecker is a comedian I love. There's been plenty of, especially like podcasters or just like meme comedians who are like left wing comedians or like do like political edgy kind of left wing humor. I even though I don't really associate myself too much with that, like it's still like has obviously influenced me of like seeing, I can kind of like take these left wing elements and like have fun with them in various ways. So
Yeah. Like I see it as like kind of like the niche of, like, I feel like the I don't know, like the character you get into is like, it's like in a way it's like a satire of like the like corporate BuzzFeed like liberal blog kind of rhetoric niceness.
yeah.
Whereas like before it was like the we make fun of everyone type
Oh
of, like,
yeah.
yes, like that's kind of how I see it. Like I see
Yeah.
it as like a satire on how like the like kind of corporate like kind of like the PC-ness, but like from a corporate perspective it's like kind of like disingenuous. Like that's how I kind of view the satirical elements of Punk Revolution now.
Absolutely, and I would also just add though, it also comes from a place of love too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not just like, oh my god, like liberals are so, like because obviously, yeah, like it's true that like corporations and like the establishment, etc., have, they're using like politically correct language and like very fluffy, like superficial language, liberal language, and that's obviously worth poking fun at. But I'm also a lot of these like kind of like liberal memes. I think what makes it like good, or I hope so, is that like I'm left wing. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm a right winger who's like trashing, oh my god, liberals are so like the establishment. It's like, no, like, oh, he's doing a satire, but there's also like some truth to what he's saying too. Hopefully, you know what I mean.
Watch the Bud Light video.
The Bud Light video,
that's for
the Bud Light
audience.
video will, I think, help you understand.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
I have some.
Thank you for watching that one. Yeah.
I think I've been watching pretty consistently for
that's
like
great.
Year and a half now at this point.
That's great. No, it makes me really happy. And that's the thing that's interesting.
I think I followed when it was like you were like at like 700 on the Instagram page.
Yeah, well that really
I have
means a lot.
DM'd you on my personal account. Like I've just sent you like random.
That means a
shit
lot.
posts.
I really, really appreciate it. And what's been really interesting is that like sometimes I kind of feel like I'm doing a little bit two different things that feel sometimes very different, which is like my comedy stuff and then my music stuff. But the thing that's made it like work for me is that it just so happens that the people who are like on the internet and really into like nerdy music like you and me are also the same people who are really into this, like they're the same sense of humor. It's like the same demographic. So it's like it's been able to work for me.
We're in the Gen Z era.
The Gen Z era.
We're past the millennial era, I think.
That's what I'm learning, and that's been really fun for me. Is like a lot of the DMs I get and the people I'm interacting with are teenagers or 20, 21 years old or whatever, and like this is an age group that like I don't interact with very, very often at a personal level, but like that's like kind of where the audience is, and it feels cool. It makes me feel cool to have like this like age group that I'm influencing and like and is like the age group that understands my content and is like clicking with it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I also like just like with your channel, your videos especially, there's like kind of like multiple levels of like okay, so before I knew like what your real name was, I just like assumed that like your presence online was like similar to Nostalgia Critic, was just like the punk instead of the critic.
Yeah.
So I in my head it was like, oh, it's I guess he's just the punk. So in my head there's like kind of like different levels of like the punk to Kaio spectrum.
There is.
So like
yes.
There's like the high end of the spectrum is like the Hamilton video. That's like the most like abstracted one.
Yeah.
And then like the one that's more like the Kaio stuff is like the reviews, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's like genuine, but you need to throw in some like, like PRN inflections here and there. And then like there's like the more political content seems to be like the middle ground.
Exactly. Wow, you really have done
Yeah,
your
like
homework. You
the
understand
Bud
it.
Light video.
Yeah, well, it's always been a struggle for me, honestly, to be entirely honest, because as someone who makes this variety, this kind of like spectrum of content, which more serious and personal to more just explicitly, I'm in a character and I'm doing funny stuff. I like doing all this content, and I definitely, and I get DMs from people sometimes who are like, stop with the character, I just want to see your real self, and other people who are like, stop with your real self, I just want you to be
Yeah.
funny. And like, and even and just ignoring what other people say, just like internally, like, what do I want to do? Because there's different things I can do. Sometimes it's like kind of like a struggle for me to like know what do I want to make. But I've just have found like how I approach it is just like, I'm just gonna make what I want in the moment, and maybe one day you'll get me, and maybe the next day you'll get a character, and that's worked so far for me. It's just kind of like just focusing on doing what makes me happy is, I think, what makes the content most enjoyable for me to make, and then which translate to making the content more enjoyable for the viewer, rather than like getting too much in my head, which I think every person who's a creator, whether they're a comedian or a musician or whatever, it's easy to overthink what you're going to do rather than just doing it.
Hmm. Okay, so I have more music related questions now. So in your top 100 albums of all time list, it's the way I understand it, it's kind of ranked on like influence more than anything. And In the Airplane Over the Sea is the number one. Not to spoil it, but it is at the top when you scroll. So, that's an album to me where it's like, when you listen to it at like a young age, it's like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then you listen to like more stuff, and it like kind of fades into the background. But I had like a reconsideration of that as the top one pick, and I wanted to know what your thoughts on this was. I think that album is like like its influence is distinct because I think there's two groups of like music listeners. There's people who know that album and people who don't. And like people who know that album, like it's like a signifier that like they're at least starting or have gone into like the online music sphere.
I think that's yeah no I think that's a good I think that's a very good, like, it definitely is like a litmus test. You know what I mean? Like, if you've listened to it and know it, then you definitely are tapped into a specific universe. It is a
Yeah.
really important album. I would I mean I would argue I put it as number one, and I still like would defend that and stand by that for a number of reasons. I think
Hmm.
what you said is also like a very important thing. It's just like such an iconic album. It's such a like a signal. It's just like the discourse around it, the like lore around it is insane.
It
I
was like the start of the rabbit hole
It's
for
the
me.
start of the rabbit hole. It's
Yeah.
the start of the rabbit hole. That's a really good way of putting it. It's the start of the rabbit hole. I've also found that as I've like listened to it throughout, like as I've gotten older and stuff, I discover more and more influence. And I mean, obviously for me, like when I listen to it now, the punk influence really stands out to me. And some people might think it's a stretch to say like, oh, it's like this folk rock album. How is there punk in it? But if you read like an early like Pitchfork interview with Jeff Mangum, the singer, he explicitly like says that like his favorite band is, or maybe not his favorite, one of his favorite bands is Minutemen, and he like talks a lot
Mhm.
about like, and I can just kind of hear a little bit, the dynamics in that album between like the very soft, super emotional melodies and like angelic kind of soft stuff going on with the dynamic kind of like stepping on the fuzz pedal, getting more like power chords, distortion. I think it's just an album. I feel like the more I listen to it, the more I kind of peel back, the more I discover new things about it. So in that
Mhm.
sense, I think it just continues to demonstrate to me that it is an amazing album, and I'd stand by keeping it as number one best of all time.
Mhm. I mean, it's not a bad album at all. I liked to me that the number one that was very representative of the being like kind of the I don't know, the start of like the umbrella for people in music circles and not.
It absolutely
But
is. It
like
absolutely
Neutral Milk
is.
Hotel and Elephant Six, like they were like very like DIY
Oh yeah.
like stuff. Like I think like for I don't think it's hard to see them as definitely in like the punk sphere. Like they're big on like home recordings and stuff. A
Yeah,
lot of their older stuff is like that too.
and they're from Athens, Georgia, which is where Justin from Slint Memes is from. So
Oh.
maybe I shouldn't have doxed him. Oh well, I'm doxing him anyway. Sorry, Justin. But so just showing you the music legacy stuff continues in mysterious and magical ways.
All right, so next thing I have is on Anthony Fantano. So I feel like you have this like it's like I don't know if it's genius or if it's unintentionally genius, but this like character assassination of Anthony Fantano, it's like makes like kind of any like casual fan of his like myself kind of like see him in a little bit negative light. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the way I see your strategy, I guess, is like you're not even like fully like trolling him. You just kind of like do your thing. Like you just kind of like exist in interaction with him, and he just like doesn't play along at all. He's just like it's just like fully like anti fun. Like that's
Well,
how I see it.
that's been the shocking thing to me about it is that like when I started doing the Anthony Fantano bits, I was like, okay, this is just like kind of like fun, stupid content I'm putting out there. He doesn't have to play along, like he doesn't have to play along if he wants to, whatever. And then every
If he
time,
even like finds the
and
video.
then exactly, and then like whenever he's had any interactions where he like acknowledges my existence, it's been with like a very like critical and sharp and like bitter tone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh my fucking god! Oh, sorry, I can't curse. Like, oh my god, this dude is
Curse.
like, oh, I was just joking about you being like shitty, but now it's really now it's clear that you really are like you really do suck. So
Yeah,
like,
like it's just like he's reacting so strongly to like these like little videos. It's
yeah.
just like
Well,
um
I mean,
I don't know, shows his character.
yeah, and that's the thing is like, bro, I'm not trying
Post
to
big
like,
money.
yeah, I'm not trying to like destroy this man's career or anything like that. Like, obviously, like this character has this rivalry with him, but like he just like, I just like it was just like I was just like legitimately upset. It just I found it legitimately upsetting by how he was reacting to this stuff and. You know, like I was literally just kind of like, I'm just like gonna keep playing along with this Anthony Fantano saga, you know, and then just things kind of just played the way out it did, and you know, I'm still bitter about it.
Yeah, like it was for me it was like very like kind of like telling of how he's become. Like there's like a sect of people who are like, yeah, Anthony he used to be like an edgy right wing guy, and now he's like doesn't even acknowledge that. But then like I think more importantly, like for like this stuff to me shows like actual like why is he's acting weird? Like the fact that he's just like acting so like anti fun so strongly to these little like I don't know character videos.
Yeah, I don't know what to make
Like
of
that's
it.
I just think it's really funny.
I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like I know a few years ago, not even directed at me, but like just like he was getting into like bitter arguments and fights on Twitter where he was just like like he was like literally like people were just dissing him because they didn't like his reviews and stuff and he was just like picking fights with random people and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so it's not just me. Clearly, like a lot of people, like he's got issues. He needs to work on them. I was like, I feel like I just kind of like just sat back and watched as like I won the argument by just him be just like being a fool on the internet. So
Yeah. I don't know. The Anthony Fantano saga is very fun to watch. There's like this is one video where it's like the cock confidence one. Like
oh
over my like,
yeah,
over my summer job, like my friends and I would like quote that to each other like all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one was very funny. Okay, so other music questions I have. for like current scene right now, do you have like a top three like favorite NYC DIY bands that are active right now?
I'm gonna say no.
That's okay.
No, I've I haven't been like I've gone to a decent amount of kind of like shows recently, but none that like um my friend's band You Bet is releasing a new album soon, YOUBET, and I think they're really really dope. I love watching them perform live. Um I'm gonna go with Ulf because you just saw them live yesterday, and you turned them on to me, and I think they're really dope. And I played with Chased a couple times with Died, and they're like same band members, and I know they're really good because I've played with their band members, and also I listen to their music, and they sound really good.
In my opinion, they're the best band out of New York right now.
They are very very good. And I've seen lots of really really awesome bands that I always just kind of blank on. But do you have a third one? Let me know. Help me out.
I don't know. I also have like not really been in NYC too
I
much.
should know this.
I guess,
I'm a
like,
music
not,
critic
like,
in
band.
Brooklyn.
I'd say like Dream Crusher. Oh, Antinomy.
Oh.
Antinomy. I gotta shout out Antinomy.
Oh, I saw Dream Crusher
or
live.
Shiverboard.
I saw Dream Crusher live a long time ago. Like literally like in their first before they had like really released they were. Let me see. I always like to brag about this. This was back. I saw Dream Crusher back when I was in high school. So this was back in 2015.
I mean, they've been active for like 20 years at this point.
Yeah, and I remember.
I don't know how long they've been doing live stuff, but it says Wichita, Kansas, 2003 was like the first releases.
Yeah, and I remember what happened was I went to their show and it was in a basement. It was like a really really small show, and they turned off all the lights in the basement, so it was completely pitch black, and they were blasting noise. And they were just walking around the room, like screaming and just like pushing people, and it was like so scary. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that was amazing. And like they didn't, I don't even know, like they were like super like nothing at that time. And then like now they've gotten like a lot of like they're finally recognized as like a really awesome musician. So it's been really cool to be like, I saw them very early,
Mm-hmm. I guess if other ones I recommend is Antinomy. They're self-described as freak math rock. They just started recently. I have footage of their first ever show on the channel. You can check that out. And Shiverboard.
All
I don't know
right.
if you've heard of Shiverboard. Shiverboard's like if I'm gonna write a flyer for them, I'd just write like slime core. Because they're just like, it's like experimental metalcore, like type stuff. Very good. All right, second to last question I have. This is it's a quick one. What's with Sesame Street?
Well, I just follow a bunch of Sesame Street related accounts on Instagram. And
you grew up with them, or you just like their presence?
There's really no explanation other than like I just feel like the Sesame Street just resonates really hard with the Punk Revolution Now character. That's all. That's really all there is to it. Like it just fits. It just
They're
feels
real New Yorkers.
They really are. They really are. And it's both the authentic side of me like Sesame Street, but the Punk Revolution Now side of me like love Sesame Street. Yeah. There's really it just fits. There's no other way of putting it. It's just the chemistry is there. That's all there is to it.
I see. All right, and then I have my good closing question is, where do you think the kind of DIY punk revolution is going, and what do you think needs to happen to have a successful punk revolution?
Well,
what are your main tenets, I guess?
I'm kind of optimistic about the punk revolution because I feel like at this point, it's always been a cliche that like pop music sucks, and we need like punk music and like an anti-mainstream reaction to like make cool experimental art. And that's always been like true, and I've always stood by that. And even if it's kind of a cliche thing to say, it's just facts. And I feel like it's been challenging because like of just how the kind of music is distributed now on the internet. It's like really hard for there to be like a consolidated like indie music scene, which is kind of like what I was trying to help like foster a little bit with my Punk Revolution Now stuff. But I feel like at this point, pop music has gotten so bad and algorithmic with like basically trying to make like songs that fit the TikTok algorithm, that like the desire for like the demand for like indie and experimental punk music, both to create it and also to like listen to it, I think is very, very high right now. So I think it's just kind of a matter of like just continuing to make music and encouraging music and supporting music of artists that are actively like resisting the algorithm, actively swimming upstream the algorithm, even though like the algorithms desperately want you to make music in a certain format.
Yeah, people are trying to create something new.
Exactly. So
there's like I see like kind of like a new like phase of like corporate indie as like the bands that kind of pop up and their sound is just kind of imitating like what's popular on Spotify. They have like this Spotify indie sound, I call them. And I see those bands as kind of like a little bit like they do like a non-starter, like they are indie but they're against the punk revolution.
Absolutely, and that's been a tricky thing. Is just indie music at this point is so like it can be like like appropriated into those like front page of Spotify playlists, and the music sounds like nothing, but like music you listen to in the background of a store while you're shopping or whatever, you know. So it's important to like continue drawing that distinct line of I'm gonna be real indie. I'm gonna be real counterculture. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So before we go, where can the people find you? You can plug your stuff, plug your upcoming projects and whatnot.
Thank you. So, just search Punk Revolution Now on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Follow me all across there. Listen to my podcast with Jonah Varka, Based News Network. Just search Based News Network. And also, I'm very excited about this. My band Fireman has a new EP coming out January 1st. It drops. It's called Territorial Conquest 2024. It is crust punk, experimental punk, hardcore, post-hardcore, you know, punk revolution type stuff. And the music obviously it's you know just like kind of the message of the EP is very just like anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, and was written obviously with like the events of like the war in Ukraine in mind, and I feel like it's, you know, just continues to be relevant in a very depressing way with the newest unfortunate, you know, conflict that I don't know, probably not allowed to talk about on the radio, but you know what's going on.
No, this isn't on airwaves. This is like online. You can say whatever you want.
There's a genocide happening in Palestine. All right.
I've already talked about it.
Okay, cool. So. All right. Anyway, so listen to the Fireman EP, and yeah, just follow me on the Punk Revolution Now, and I'll keep posting about it to remind you in January when it comes out. So yeah.
Fireman is good. I don't have my tapes with me because they're in Syracuse, but I'd pull up both the EP and the album.
Dope. Well, I got more cassettes coming.
I vouch for those. They're very good. Listen to Fireman.
Thank you.
So, Kyle, thank you for joining us on Chronically Online on WERW. This has been a great first interview, and I hope you have a good day.
You too. Thanks for having
me. Remember, Punk Revolution
now.